Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a very good bill, and I hope that Senator Cherigai will sit to be educated by an agroforestry expert. It's debate, you know, you learn knowledge in the middle of debate. I don't know why Senator Cherigai is Mr. Speaker, perhaps one of the things that this House doesn't know is that I've been involved in tree planting for the longest. I see people getting a lot of accolades, and sometimes you don't need to blow your own trumpet. But I'm actually the founder of TRICO. Maybe you've heard about TRICO. You should come and visit my place. I came up with a model, Mr. Speaker, that helps communities to do what we call aggregation of microforests. Our model is a very simple one that argues that instead of doing big plantations, you can actually empower farmers by ensuring that those farmers plant the trees by themselves and they get incentive to take care of those trees. In Migori County today, Mr. Speaker, I have got thousands of farmers that we have enabled to plant only 365 trees, and we pay you an equivalent of $1 a tree a year, which translates to 10 shillings every month for every tree that you grow. And that means that we have put families, over 2,000 families that we have put in this program that are earning.
I don't want to interrupt you, Senator Eddy Oketch. Is it that you learn agroforestry or you plant trees?
I practice agroforestry.
You know, agroforestry is a course by itself, a training.
Yes. I did a course. You know where I went to, Mr. Speaker. I went to a liberal arts school.
Because I don't want
in Yale University, where you can take a course, just a course on agroforestry in a semester.
A unit.
And that's why I got a lot of interest. But then when I came back to start this program, I also went to KEFRI, which is actually the best institution in Africa in terms of science and knowledge of tree growing and tree planting. They are different. Tree planting is an easier part, but tree growing is the major part. How do we get into tree growing exercises? So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious thing that is close to my heart. And I want to thank Senator Asige and also our counterpart, Honorable Mayaka in the National Assembly for coming with this bill. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is a conversation that has been going on. It's a very controversial conversation. And I say controversial because I am very addicted to science. And I want to bring science to this conversation. Because, Mr. Speaker, as you've seen this bill, the way it has been put, it says that we need to amend Section 42 of the Environmental Management and Coordination Act and amend subsection 3 by inserting the following new paragraphs immediately after paragraph B. They're introducing paragraph BA, which says the prohibition of the introduction, growth, or maintenance of trees of the eucalyptus species, not varieties, in and along any river, lake, sea, or wetlands. And then it says the prohibition of the introduction, growth, of maintenance of any invasive species or other potentially dangerous species, again, along those water bodies, Mr. Speaker. Now, this is what I wanted to say, Mr. Speaker. While I appreciate the essence of this bill, which is basically saying that when you plant eucalyptus trees in totality along water bodies, then it will drain water, it is a theory that is proven by part. So, to the extent that we could limit this conversation to a scientific conversation, I will support this bill. But I think that if you're not careful, we'll make an omnibus bill that I'm happy because this bill now is with Senator Asige, who is a very serious scientist as well. She likes facts and database. Mr. Speaker, I think that we cannot take this bill as it has come from the National Assembly. I think we must rework this bill so it has got a scientific basis. Because this bill has just looked at the cons of eucalyptus. It doesn't look at the pros of eucalyptus. And then it has looked at the cons of planting eucalyptus trees on wet water areas, which is an omnibus in the sense that not all water or wetlands and water bodies are affected the same way with eucalyptus. And I'll argue my case, Mr. Speaker, so that I can be able to help perhaps work this bill so that it actually has got a more coherent approach that doesn't limit it. To start with, just in the issue of the cons or the demerits of planting eucalyptus, Mr. Speaker, scientifically, if you go to KEFRI has indicated a number of this knowledge and they're available to the public. There is a fashion with which eucalyptus species deplete water resources. And this is because there are a number of varieties of eucalyptus that are guzzlers of water. They drink a lot of water during the time that they are growing, and most of all when they attain a certain kind of maturity. So that guzzling of water in Kenya, you can argue it out that while it is true, does it really affect lakes, seas, and oceans that we have? It is only dangerous to the extent that it affects springs, streams, and wells that could easily dry up. For instance, if you go and plant eucalyptus in Lake Victoria, it doesn't have the same effect as planting eucalyptus on the hills of Kisii Highlands or in the hills of Mau Summit. Because in Mau Summit or on the Kisii Islands, you will find springs, streams, and wells that are essential for our water catchment areas. So in those areas, scientifically, you can limit eucalyptus planting in those areas. But it has got a different effect when you take them in wet water lands in the grassroots areas like the lowlands of the lake, because in some of those lowlands, they are endemic watersheds that look like swamps, that planting them there actually restores that entire ecosystem. So the first thing about water guzzling that you must do, Mr. Speaker, you must specify in a law like this what water areas will you be limiting them from. Is it the catchment areas, or is it the areas that it will be able to stabilize the biodiversity? And I'll go back into science once I get into the pros for planting these trees. The second thing, Mr. Speaker, is because of the element of how they grow tall and big, they can inhibit the biodiversity of an area. What do I mean by this? They end up forming this canopy that has got this littering leaf that can kill other biodiversity plants that could also help with the ecosystems of water. So that becomes a problem. And it goes to the first question that I was saying, that it is important to limit it in water catchment areas. Mr. Speaker, eucalyptus trees also have got very oily leaves. In general, this is a general conversation. In general, they've got very oily leaves. And that oily leaves sometimes exposes them to catching wildfires. And we have seen this even in the US, where you see a lot of wildfires coming as a result of leafy trees, just the chemicals in the leafy trees catching fire, and sometimes are highly inflammable to just extreme weather conditions like extreme heat. What that will do, Mr. Speaker, is that they end up causing these fires that can deplete an entire area of water catchment. These things we must understand them to that level. And then lastly, Mr. Speaker, there's an element of soil degradation, which basically, because of their deep and aggressive roots, those roots, Mr. Speaker, end up competing with other surrounding vegetation that may end up depleting the ecosystem for which other vegetations could be able to actually grow and support the water system. But Mr. Speaker, that said, why has eucalyptus been a backbone of small and medium income families in our economy? It is important that when you're doing this kind of law, you must look at the environment impact vis-a-vis the economic impact, and you will see that, Mr. Speaker, most of the families in the grassroots have actually educated their children through tree planting. Because you plant a eucalyptus tree, And depending on the variety, which I'll touch on very fast, Mr. Speaker, depending on the variety, within 3-4 years, you start earning from a tree, one log, you can make as much as 7,000 shillings. And Mr. Speaker, you can imagine the families that are, for instance, tea-growing families. In Kericho, where the Senator of Nandi comes from, in Nandi, where the majority comes from in Kericho, those families find serious fuel from this eucalyptus to actually even process tea. So there's a first element of economic return that eucalyptus has in terms of the timber and furniture as well as fuel that it does help with. Meaning that if we restrict it to some areas that will interfere with the water systems, then it makes sense. But there are some water systems like lakes that even if you grow it there, it will not necessarily interfere with the water tables of those areas. But if you put this bill the way it is, you are going to limit it to anything water body and make it impossible to grow eucalyptus. Such that even the sense of sometimes draining waterlogged areas, like marshy water areas that are not good for massive water consumption, you will still limit it with this bill. So I wanted to urge my sister, Senator Crystal, and of course my sister, Senator Irene, Honorable Irene in National Assembly, to look at the potential of growing eucalyptus in areas that you can be able to grow that are not necessarily areas without water bodies. There are areas with water bodies that can actually still grow eucalyptus. And Mr. Speaker, if this is the House of the Senate, which always thinks, and I'm not in any way trying to impute in power of motive in the lower house, but I've seen a number of times the rigor in this house. The rigor in this house is very more scientific, and we go into some small details. If we have the time, and if Senator Crystal Asige will allow some of us who have been in this tree planting business, we could be able to go into drafting a law that scientifically looks at this issue depending on species of the eucalyptus, the age of the eucalyptus, and the weather condition where it is planted. Because, Mr. Speaker, planting eucalyptus in Turkana, near Lake Turkana, will not affect Lake Turkana. It will instead rebuild the water ecosystem in that area. That's a weather condition. Unlike planting it in Kisii, where there is rain every single day, but it will interfere with the water catchment in that highland in Kisii, or the Mau forest. So the first thing I wanted to urge Senator Asige, can we be able to look at the varieties of eucalyptus and recommend a law that looked scientifically at those particular varieties that could affect a certain system and a certain weather condition and restrict those while allowing others to be growing in some areas. Number two, can we also look at the age of eucalyptus that we are recommending that if you find a eucalyptus variety grown at a younger age in some areas, because a young eucalyptus, Mr. Speaker, actually does not take more than 20 liters of water. But the older eucalyptus get, once you say, for instance, 5 years and above, it starts guzzling about 100 liters of water to sometimes even 200 liters. But if you look at families that want to use eucalyptus for economic gains, most of them use them between the ages of 1 month to about 5 years. So why are you restricting a family that is using eucalyptus at 5 years? For instance, if you look at Eucalyptus grandis, the species that came from South Africa, it matures within 5 years. And by that time, it will have formed about 30 meters that can be able to be sold to distribution poles that we see in this country, Mr. Speaker. If you limit it to age, then there's nothing wrong with growing Eucalyptus grandis around the lake, around a river, as long as the law says that they cannot go above 5 years. Yet at 5 years, the owner of that Eucalyptus grandis will have gotten the economic return and contribute to our economy. So age must be important to be looked at here, not just saying eucalyptus. And then, Mr. Speaker, the last one, so that I can let other people also contribute, would be to look at this thing in terms of going specific to species of eucalyptus or variety. I wouldn't call them, because eucalyptus already is a species by itself, but the varieties that are taking more water than others. For instance, Mr. Speaker, if you were to go to Kefri, you will learn that there is a eucalyptus species called Tasmanian blue gum, which other people call Eucalyptus globus. Because of that name, Mr. Speaker, it ended up taking almost 339 to 1,079 millimeters of water per year, whether young or old, because of the nature of the rings that it needs to form. That particular species should be limited by this bill from being grown on any water body. But if you come to another species here, Mr. Speaker, that we have in the country, called the cedar gum or Eucalyptus guni, as specified by experts, Mr. Speaker. This one has got a very popular forage that is very good for developing good poles for distribution and sometimes also transmission, Mr. Speaker. But it requires just regular water. In fact, it takes less water than tea plantations, than even cotton plantations. Why would you limit this species by this omnibus bill? Another one, Mr. Speaker, that we have in the country is silver dollar gum, or the Eucalyptus polyanthermus, Mr. Speaker. This one actually grows even in hard conditions, needs very little water. If you look at other things that we grow, like even Mirai in Meru, Mr. Speaker, the Mirai in Meru takes more water than this silver dollar gum. Why would you want to limit this species? Well, if you look at another one called river red gum, or Eucalyptus calamadulensis, this particular one takes about 500 gallons of water. That one you limit it, because that one will take more water from our river sources, Mr. Speaker. So it is important that I wanted to urge my sister, Senator Sige, that we limit eucalyptus according to the varieties that are harmful to the environment, and allow the scientific model to be able to allow for those that do not take a lot of water. We should not have an omnibus bill that will make it difficult. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the one that I like the most, because this one I've been able to try to get its seeds, the one that my brother Senator Sichiragei was talking about, which is the lemon-scented gum, which is, we also call it Eucalyptus citriodoral. This one is the tree that has got the aromatic oil that is used for a number of things, like developing the things that we use in sauna, the therapeutic chemicals. Mr. Speaker, this particular variety, first of all, grows within 6 years to a 35 meters tall tree. But if you look at the kind of water that it takes less water than cotton. In fact, it is a drought-tolerant tree of eucalyptus variety that is highly recommended in any temperature of our tropical environment. So if you pass this bill by saying that we are going to prohibit any eucalyptus species, not variety, species, you will be doing injustice to a very highly valuable variety of eucalyptus, this lemon-scented gum, that could give the economy a lot of money and has got nothing to do with the interference of water table on the environment. And Madam Speaker, it will be very, very unfair for people already doing this to miss out in cashing out from this. So I support this bill, but I will support it with amendments that are scientifically based, because this is the house of the Senate, where we do research, where we depend on data, where we depend on science to be able to make decisions in lawmaking and putting up legislations that are not necessarily prohibitive to opportunities of economic magnitude like the trees that we have. Therefore, I will be bringing some amendments to look at the scientific element. If my sister, Senator Sige, will agree.
Thank you, Senator Eddy. I'm trying to get the list of the speakers who are interested in contributing to this